I believe we are on. Yes, we are. All right. What's going on, Facebook? I have Jessica here with me. Jessica, how's your day going? How you doing?
So far, so good. Pretty busy day.
Pretty busy day. We had a little technical difficulties here with Facebook, but we're good. We're live. Jessica, I first of all, I want to thank you so much for being willing to do this. I know we met. I feel like 4 years ago.
Maybe 4 years ago, I think.
About 4 years ago. I think I met you when you were working at the mall.
Yep. Oh, you remember? Yeah.
I remember. It was the pretzel store.
That's right, Wetzel's Pretzels.
Wetzel's Pretzels. And when we met, I was so impressed. How old were you back then?
19.
19. Okay. I remember this. I was so impressed because you were telling me that you came up with your own campaign to be able to sell, I think, a pretzel plus something equals a drink or something, and you helped.
That's right.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. I didn't until now. Yeah.
So I was very impressed. I said, okay, this 19-year-old, she's going places, right? So fast forward, now 23 years old, making six figures. You have a couple of businesses. I'm gonna have you tell your story here in a bit, but can I tell you my intention in the podcast?
Of course.
Okay. So the podcast is called the Ultimate Life Podcast because I think more people want to know how to improve areas of their life, and these are the 6 areas for me. So it's faith, one it could be family, one could be finance, which is what we're going to talk about. One could be fitness, friends, fun. So those are what I call the 6 F's. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about finance. I feel like you've mastered at 23 what most people who are 53 have not yet mastered.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about this? If I were to ask you, what do you do in an elevator? What would you say?
I would say I'm an entrepreneur for sure. And when people think entrepreneur, they think like this lavish lifestyle, right? Which in some cases, if that's what you value, that's great. But for me, an entrepreneur that runs, 3 businesses, right?
Okay.
That's what I would say. And then they ask me what business, I would just say e-commerce. It's just the easy thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So e-commerce, and we're going to get into that. Why don't you tell me a little bit about your story? So I want to kind of start with where you're at now, but tell me a little bit about your story, kind of where you got started and how you are now.
Yeah. So, I grew up in San Gabriel, California, right? My whole life. Have 2 very supportive parents. I have 3 sisters, 2 older, 1 younger, right? And growing up as a kid, I just remember myself was always being competitive, right? I love sports. I loved being active, right? And, came down to high school when I graduated, I had to pick a major, right? I got accepted to go to Cal State Northridge, and at the time I went to be a detective. I wanted to be a detective. I'm not sure why, but that's kind of just what I wanted to do, right? Be in some sort of law enforcement. So right after high school, I got my first job at the mall, right? Wetzel's Pretzels, while going to school full time at Cal State Northridge, still pursuing criminal justice.
Okay.
And so in my time working at the mall, I became a manager really quickly, right? Because it was my first job ever, seriously. And I guess I just had natural work ethic, I'd like to say. And I built a really great relationship with the owner of Wetzel's Pretzels, right? And she introduced me to this whole new world of business that I had no idea of, right? And I always thought of business as like old white men, you know what I mean? Like that's what I thought. Like I never ever dreamed about owning a business or running a business. But once I saw her, a female minority, she has her own business, it kind of like opened me to the doors of like what's possible. I always saw that she never had to report to a boss. She kind of just comes and goes as she pleases. And I really that really drew into me. So I continued, just to ask questions, and she was really my first mentor. And I got just so drawn and addicted to that lifestyle that I just said, you know what? I really do not want to be working for someone, especially law enforcement. They have crazy hours, right? And not be able to do the things that I love. So that's kind of how I made the switch. And it was more for freedom, not really like financials. Like I just wanted to do what I wanted when I wanted.
So she was the owner And it wasn't the money, it was more exactly what you're saying, the freedom of time. That was what attracted you. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. And then so don't fast forward. What's the next step? So you're working at the pretzel store. You're the manager of the pretzel store. You're 19. You're killing it, right?
Yeah. So I'm the manager at the pretzel store. I was there for about 3 years, right? So while I'm the manager, I always thought like, this is cool, right? I'm making $20 an hour as a 19-year-old manager. You know, some 19-year-olds will be comfortable, right?
Right.
But for me, I always thought if I continue to stay here, I will never be my own boss. Like ultimately, she's still my boss, right? Which I had so much respect for her, but I wanted to be her. Like I wanted to do that, and I was like, okay, what business can I start right now as a 19-year-old? I can't go open up a restaurant, right? It takes hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I was just really doing research on my own online on businesses I can start now, because I am not like a patient person. I'm like aggressively just doing, right, and trying. And so that's kind of how I fell into e-commerce, right? I saw that you can, you know, open a store online and make money, right? And obviously as a 19-year-old, I saw like where the internet was headed. Maybe a lot of people didn't see that, but I saw like the internet is only getting bigger and better, and you know, it's going to be a way that everyone uses, right? And so I started my first online store while I was still at Wetzel's Pretzels, doing that simultaneously, and just testing it out. Of course it failed, right? It failed because 19-year-old, I'm just gonna do this, I'm gonna automatically succeed and make money. And I still didn't have like the right mindset yet. I kind of was just fell into it and just doing it.
Let me ask you a question there, because I think this is where most people get scared of failure. I have a 2-year-old son, and I tell him, hey, I tell him, mijo, in life there's winners and learners, right? So I think a lot of people get scared of the idea of failure, but right now you're like, of course I failed. It was my first one. You're saying that now, you know, making 6 figures. How did you feel then? Did you feel like, oh yeah, of course it's gonna happen?
No, I seriously wanted to quit because like I didn't know how good failure was at the time, right? Failure is a great thing. I know that now. But back then, you know, I really thought like, maybe I'm not capable. You know, maybe I'm not smart enough to do this. I should probably just stay in my route doing criminal justice and play it safe, right? Maybe I'm just a good manager and I'm not a good business owner. Like literally that's what I thought, right?
Yeah.
But me being the competitive person that I am, I think I just always like, I felt that way for a bit, and then I was like, okay, no, like let's try it again, right? And the thing that I'm really grateful for that I learned is like I can afford to lose money at a young age, right? And I can afford to take the same risk at a young age. Maybe a 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old can't take the same risk because they have mortgages, they have kids and so on. But I knew that early, and I think, you know, the business owner at Wetzel, she kind of instilled that mentality for me. And I was like, yeah, the worst that's going to happen is I'm going to lose some money, continue to try, right? But that's really it. So I really have nothing to lose. So I just kept trying, getting up and failing.
Now let me ask this, because I love that you're saying that. I'm taking notes on what you're saying, by the way. So when you failed your first business, if you remember, how much did you lose in that investment?
Yeah, I think it was about close to $3,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and at the time it was like financial aid money. Right? And it's like I wasn't really passionate about school, right? I was mainly doing it for my parents, for mom and dad.
Yeah.
But I knew I was smart, right? I always knew that, but maybe like school is not the route for me. So yeah, I put like financial aid money, and you know, I lost some of that money. But I was still working at Wetzel's Pretzels, right? Making $20 an hour, so I was still getting income. So you know, I was very fortunate in that sense.
Were you a saver?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Like most 19, 18-year-olds, you know, school doesn't teach us to be financially literate, right? And I had to learn the hard way, right? I would just get a paycheck, blow it on shoes, on things that didn't really matter now that I look at it. But it really took some failures to realize for me how important savings is, because the owner of Wetzel's Pretzels, she told me this one time, I'll never forget it. She said, you have to be prepared for opportunities because you never know when they're going to come, right? Meaning investments. You know, you can have a beautiful opportunity in front of you, but if you don't have the money to fund it, right, to invest, you lost your opportunity, and that may never come back again.
Right.
That was really like, okay, I really need to start saving and stop blowing my money on like trips, on like Disneyland, on annual passes, on shoes, and so on. So I kind of matured in that way, but probably took me maybe like a year and a half to really, you know, get serious about it.
Okay. So then you're at Wetzel's Pretzels, you're the manager, you're 19, 20 years old, you invest $3,000 into a business. How long did you do that business before you said, hey, it's not going to work?
I probably did it, I would say 6 to 8 months, right? And I could have done it longer, but I didn't want to continue losing more money. So I wanted to take a step back and see, like, maybe this specific business isn't it. Let's try other avenues. But I did that specific one for about 6 to 8 months.
Most people at that point would have quit. You didn't. What was the next part there?
The next part was really like, I felt like I had to get a mentor, right? And
Okay.
this is after those 6 to 8 months, I was, you know, following into reading books, right? Never read a single book in high school. I can tell you that, never. And I started getting fascinated with reading books from these highly successful people. That just draws my attention, right? And so I started reading books and watching videos. I started using social media to my advantage, right? Connecting with people who had exactly what I wanted, right? So it was just reaching out, and I found another mentor who helped me with my current business, obviously that's booming, which is the Amazon drop shipping, selling through Amazon and having my store on Amazon.
So he didn't reach out to you. You reached out to him. You were looking.
Yeah, I was looking.
So why do you think most people don't? Why do you think most people use social media to entertain themselves versus to build them? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, it's the easy thing to do, right? Like,
Yeah.
entertaining is so easy, right? And I feel like people nowadays, because we have everything so easy for us, like instant gratification, like we don't like to do the hard work, right? Or we're scared of rejection. Like, what if they don't reply? Then they don't reply. That's it, right? So I think like that is the key, right? Like, you have to go out, like nothing is gonna fall to you, nothing, right? You have to go find it. And I think nowadays people rather be comfortable than uncomfortable, which uncomfortable is good. That's where you grow. That's where you get out of your shell. But I don't know if it's because of social media or because of how easy we have access to everything now. It makes people just want to be comfortable and happy where they are.
And okay, so when you reached out to him, and here's why I'm breaking it out, because I'm not speaking to the individual who already runs a business. I'm not speaking to the individual who's already making 6 figures. I'm speaking to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 10 individuals who are listening, who are thinking about it, who are financially frustrated, but there's this fear. When you sent that message, now you and I both know at this stage of our lives that it's not a big deal. But back then, did you fear rejection? Did you fear what if he says this, or it was not a big deal?
I didn't really feel rejection, to be honest. Like, I wasn't scared of that. Like, I mean, I feel like if it was, I had to go knock in person, then I would be. But I mean, it was through social media. Yeah,
Right.
it's so easy. So I think that kind of helped me. But I reached out to a lot of people, right? And a lot of them didn't reply, and that was fine. But all it took is that one person, right? And this one person happened to be like the most perfect one for me, I feel.
And I think that's God right there. I think that's such a good lesson in, because as you were saying it, I thought you reached out to one person, that person replied, and your life changed. It was no, you reached out to a handful of people.
I reached out to multiple people, and you know, a lot of them didn't reply. Some replied, but I had conversations, and you can truly feel when someone wants to help you or someone just wants to sell you something.
Yeah.
So, you know, I kind of had that intuition. Like, I said no to some of them who I talked to, and then found the right one.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So then tell me a little bit from there. So now how old are you? When you find your mentor, how old are you?
I am about 21 and a half, I would say, almost 22.
Okay. So
yeah,
I'm almost 22. You're still working?
still working. Yeah.
Have savings?
Some sort of savings, not much, maybe $2,000 at most.
And when you started working with the Amazon drop shipping, how much did you have to invest up front to be able to, start a business?
Yeah, so for Amazon dropshipping, I remember it was a program, right? I needed about $1,500 for the program. And I did have 2 grand, but it had to go towards school, right? And so what did I do? I put it on my credit card, the program, right? And to me, people are like, I think people have a negative connotation on credit, right? Which is so false, right? There's good debt and there's bad debt, right? Bad debt, you go buy shoes, you go on vacations, like things that will not make you money. But if you leverage credit, right, and you know that you're going to work to pay it back and it has the potential to make you money, that's good debt, right? And to me, obviously I didn't think that before, but I was just so hungry and so desperate to just do something, right? Even if it didn't work out, 1,500, cool, I could pay it back, like even if the program didn't work. So I leveraged credit, but I made my investment back within the month.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
it was
that.
great. It was great.
I think a lot of times people really need to look at worst case scenario and realize that it's actually not that bad.
Yeah.
You could pay $1,500 back. Yeah, I mean, if we don't spend it on a business, we're gonna spend it on a vacation. We're gonna spend it on shoes. A mentor of mine told me this. There's money works in 3 different ways. You could spend money, you could invest money, or you could waste money, right? When you waste money, you get nothing back.
Yeah.
When you spend money, you get equal value back. But when you invest money, you get more than what you paid back. And it sounds like you, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Like I agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, for sure.
So then you speak to your mentor. Most people would have been like, hey, I just lost $3,000 a couple years ago, another $1,500. Now let me actually ask you this. A lot of times people are skeptical because they haven't met this person in person. You just met him on Instagram and you reached out to him. Walk me through that process.
So funny that you asked me that, because he, to this day, he asked me the same thing. Like, you failed so many times before you met me. Why weren't you scared, right? And you didn't even know me. He asked me that all the time. And I'm like, well, I was scared. I mean, that's natural, right? It's natural to be scared or like fear the unknown, right? But I always knew I will never know unless I try. And I always knew that I was capable. I think I'm just a naturally like confident person in myself. Like I'm very self-aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So me, by just knowing that, I just knew, okay, if it doesn't work or if I get scammed, just lose $1,500.
Yeah.
I'm 21. I mean, I have all this time to work, right? And I know most people don't think that way, but I guess I'm really lucky that I did think that way. Because I talk to a lot of people who reach out to me on Instagram. They want to do something and they're scared, right? They think it's a scam. What if they lose money? And I'm like, okay, well, what if you don't, right? What if you win? So, I think really like people need to like perspective, especially the young people, right? They think they're running out of time and to do whatever. But you just have so much time, right?
Yeah. I think that's so powerful because it's the reason why most people stay stuck is because they're pursuing comfort versus discomfort. And you sending a bunch of messages is uncomfortable. You talking to somebody you've never met is uncomfortable. You paying $1,500, not to the guy, but to the course, is uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
And being willing to go through discomfort ultimately will lead to now 23 years old, making 6 figures, driving that nice white Mercedes, right? Laptop lifestyle, right? So you get to experience that, but you had to go through moments of this may not work.
Yeah.
So that's so impressive.
Another important thing to add to your point is a lot of people don't know why. Why are you pursuing this? Like they don't know their why. Like why do you want to do the thing that you want to do, right? If you just want to make money, chances are it won't last long, right? But if you have something deeper, I always knew my why, right? Like I didn't want to work for anyone and I wanted to be my own boss so that I can have the freedom to spend time with my family, to travel, to play basketball whenever I want, to do the things that I love, right?
Yeah.
And that was my why. And I knew that there was nothing that I wouldn't try to accomplish that. But I think a lot of people, they don't know exactly why they were put on this earth. And I think that's the first thing. Before you invest into anything, before you decide what you want to do, what is your why? Like, why do you think you were put here? And that just comes from trying things, right? I'm not sure, Gary Vee.
Yeah.
His philosophy for young people is just taste things, right? If you don't know what you want to do after college, just try a bunch of different things and see what sticks. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
It's powerful, so powerful. So I'm gonna get into more kind of specific questions, but take it from there. So you meet this gentleman,
Mhm.
you invest the money. What's your journey? What's your journey from the time you meet him, invest the money, and kind of where you're at now?
Yeah, so when I got started with the program, right, I was super into it. Obviously had failures within it, like it's just natural. But my first month, I obviously made my investment back, and I just kept doing it, right? This is while I was working full time. I was still in school full time, and I wouldn't get home till maybe 7, 8 o'clock, and I would dedicate at least 2 hours to learning the program, to implementing, right?
Uh-huh.
So fast forward a couple months of me being in the program, I see really great steady income from my Amazon store, right?
Okay.
And I'm doing that and using the money, saving now, really
Yeah.
being more financially literate, saving and just really like evaluating my life, right? I was like, holy crap, I can make an extra $5,000 on the computer, right? I don't even make that in a month at the job I was at, right? And then
So you're still working,
yeah, I'm still working.
full-time work, full-time student, and growing a business. Okay.
And I'm doing that, and it just constantly, when my numbers would keep, like second month $5,000, third month $8,000, fourth month $10,000, right? And it was only going up, and it really like put a huge perspective to me. Like, I cannot believe I am dedicating a couple hours to this, making money while I'm working, right? I was at
Right.
work and I was still generating sales from my store, and that just blew my mind. And that kind of was like, okay, like maybe I should drop out of school and just pursue this full time, because if I take the time from school and allocate it here, I know I can blow this thing up, right?
Okay.
And it was already a decision in my mind, but it was just me being so scared to tell my parents. Like,
Right.
I already knew I was gonna do it, whether they approved it or not. But it was obviously, especially immigrant parents, like that's what they want for their kids, right? Go to school, get a good job, get a 401k, retire, die.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
like, no way.
So
Yeah.
your parents, I didn't even ask. So your parents immigrated here.
Mhm.
How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 sisters, so 2 older sisters, 1 younger sister. Yeah.
Okay, so you're the third or fourth.
Yes, and my oldest sister, she's 38. She went to school. She got a bachelor's. She got a master's. Right. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, holy crap! I have this pressure to do the same
Yeah.
thing. And I'm like, sorry, I don't want to. I don't want to do that.
So throughout your journey, did your parents know you lost $3,000 on the initial business?
Nope, I didn't tell them.
Did they know? And that's smart. Did they know you invested $1,500 on the second business?
Nope.
So what did they think you were doing this whole time?
I did tell them that, like, I really was getting into like business, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to change my major to business or if I wanted to continue that. So I think a lot of times they thought I was on the computer just researching when I was actually building a business. But yeah, I still was going to school. I was still working, but that extra time when I was home, they just kind of didn't really ask that many questions. Let me do my thing. Probably thought I was doing homework. I
Right.
wasn't.
Right.
But yeah.
So at what point did they find out, hey, you're actually making money? Like, you actually have a legit business. At what point was that?
I never really told, in the beginning, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't know where it was going to go, right?
Right.
I didn't know if it was going to flip or flop.
Right.
And I didn't want to, because you know how business is. One month you can make 10 grand, the next month you can make nothing, right? So I didn't want to, until it was super consistent, right? And they recently found out, to be honest, maybe for sure, less than a year ago.
Yeah.
That I was doing really well. And I didn't show them my numbers. I just told my mom that I was really unhappy in school. It didn't fulfill me, and I felt myself not maybe depressed, but just unfulfilled, just learning things that I really didn't care about, right? And at first she was just like, just do it, and just, you're almost done, right? She didn't really just do it to have a backup, right? She's like, you can do your business, but have the backup of school, right? It's, to me, it's not I can have a plan B, but I can always go back to school, right? At any time in my life, I could go back to school. So, she wasn't upset, but in the beginning, she was just like, just finish it. Just finish it. That's all I ask of you. And I felt bad. And I was like, okay, I went back for a little bit. But again, I was not happy.
Yeah.
And super not miserable, but I felt like I was wasting my time. And so one day I told her, like, I really cannot go back, Mom. Like, I'm not happy, and I think it's really bad for like my mental health. And I'm like, if this business thing doesn't work out, I promise you I will go back to school
Yeah.
and get my degree. If it doesn't work out, just let me try it. And
Yeah.
obviously I went on all in. And once she saw the numbers, she never said anything again.
And what about your sisters? I mean, are they, let me ask you this. Do you have more supporters now?
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure.
Now, tell me about that. One of the questions I have here is, did you have haters, and how did you handle haters?
hmm I wouldn't say, maybe I had haters, but I never gave energy to that. Like, I just, I didn't like, if people said some comment, whatever, like,
Right.
you know what I mean? So I'm sure I did, but my family never said like, you won't make it or it's not going to work. They never said that, but they said it's risky. Like, you
Okay.
should play it safe, right? And obviously they have the best interest in me.
Right.
But for me, I just always live on the philosophy of like, you have one life, like, might as
Right.
well do what you want to do. And if it doesn't work, then on to the next thing. But I never really had anyone saying like, you're not going to make it, you're not going to do it.
That's
Which-
good.
Yeah, which is great, right? I feel like
Yeah.
a lot of people have that, and I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
that sucks. But yeah, but it was never like attacked like that. It was more like, you should play it safe, or you've
Right.
already gone 3 years to school, you're almost done, you have 1 more year left, right?
Right.
But I was like, no way.
So what would you say then? And you've addressed some of it, but what would you say were some obstacles at the beginning, and then how did you overcome them? Like, what, I'll say it this way, what kept you going? What was your fuel?
My fuel was to ultimately quit my job. That has been, like, since the day I really pursued entrepreneurship, my biggest goal, aside from a dollar amount, right? I wanted to quit my job and never want to work for anyone ever again in my life. And I wanted to make sure that when I did quit, it wasn't like I can always go back, right? Like, have that safety. I'm like, oh, I can go back if I wanted to. No, if I quit, I'm never going back, ever.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was like a big thing, and that kept me going, right? I wanted to make sure I was good, because ultimately that's what drove me, is the freedom, right? The freedom to not have to freaking wake up at 9 a.m. and go to the job, and my boss tells me when to take my lunch, right? It's like, I want to decide. So that, I think, fueled me a lot. And it was like one of the greatest days ever when I finally accomplished that and stepped away. Like, I feel like I succeeded, right? Because success really is whatever you define it for yourself. And for me, it was that, right?
like that.
Now I would say I'm free, right?
I like that. And that's so powerful. So success is whatever you define.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
For you, success might be being the best dad in the world. Like, that's what you want to do, and
Mm-hmm.
you're successful, right?
Yeah.
For other people, it might be, I want to make $1 million. That will make me feel successful. Cool, that's what you want it to be. But for me, success is having the freedom to do whatever I want,
Yeah.
right? Without having to worry about money. That is success for me.
I love that.
Yeah.
And let me tell you this. Let me give you my answer for that. So for me, especially, I've been in full time, my own boss for the last 5 years now, and I see a lot of times people feel like they have to choose. Either I'm gonna be a good dad, or I'm gonna be a good businessman. I'm gonna be a good husband, or I'm gonna be a good businessman. I'm gonna be a good Christian. Like, they choose or. But I decided a few years back that I'm gonna subscribe to both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be a good dad, and I'm gonna be a good businessman, and I'm gonna have fun. And so this is why the Ultimate Life podcast is
Awesome.
those 6 things, because I want to be able to show people it's possible to do it all. Right?
And let me tell you, that is my biggest struggle at the moment.
Tell me more.
I feel like I am so focused on business that I forget to have fun sometimes, and it's a blessing and a curse, right? Because I am so ambitious to like an obsessive point, right? But then I'll literally forget, oh, I have friends that I need to talk to, right? So it's super challenging for me, and this is something I have struggled with so much ever since I started my journey, that I can never like have an equal balance. It's always some sort of this, and I'm still trying to figure it out.
Can I give you some feedback?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what I've realized. I think you can do it all. I think you absolutely can do it all. You can have great friendships, in my case, a great marriage, be a great parent. I think you can do it all, but it has to be, in my opinion, it has to be planned.
Yeah.
So this last Sunday, we said, okay, my son loves trains and tractors. So we said, okay, Sunday, I'm going to take my son to Orange County. It's like the only place in Southern California where you could have fun right now. So we take him to Orange County. We do our mask thing, but we get on the train. We go on the tractor. We have a phenomenal time. I get home, eat dinner after my wife's in bed, after he's in bed. Then I get back to work. It's now, we did it Monday, we did Tuesday. Like, I fully believe you could do it all as long as you plan. Yeah. So
I think that's the trouble nowadays with having young friends. They're just like super spontaneous. Like, hey, what are you doing tonight? Let's go out, right? I'm like, no, I have stuff to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I always often get made fun of because they call me grandma because I really like, you have to tell me a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, you know what I mean? If you want to go out and do things. But yeah, I'm still working on that. And, you know, it's challenging, right? Because I have so much passion towards like what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That sometimes I forget to like, you got to enjoy, like, this is why you're doing it, right? For the freedom. So why aren't you having freedom? Does that make sense?
100%. No, I'm with you there. I by no means have it figured out, but there's some things I've kind of figured out because I've had to, because if not, if I'm married, I want to stay married, right? So I want to.
For sure.
So that's absolutely one of the questions. Now, let me ask you this. How did you handle distraction? Because we're kind of talking about it right now a little bit, but to be able to run a successful business, you talk about making $1,500 your first month, couple thousand your next, then 4, then 8, then 10. But I'm sure there's distraction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What were distractions? How did you handle them? Tell me about that.
I mean, it comes back to the why, right? If your why is not strong enough, easily someone can persuade you to go do something else, right? There's distractions everywhere, right? There's Netflix, there's Instagram, social media, there's, you know, going out to bars, there's all these apps that easily get distracted, right? And to me, that happened a lot, right? But I was very quick to recognize it, right? Like, if I would, you know, spend a night watching Netflix, after that, I was like, okay, I'm never doing that again, right? Because I just wasted, you know, which there's nothing wrong with Netflix, right? But I was like, I can use my time more if I read a book or if I put an extra hour into the business, right? Because ultimately, again, it's your why, right? If you don't know your why, that kind of keeps you out of sync, right? It's easy to get off track.
Yep.
I knew my why, this is why I'm doing it. And I asked myself, Jessica, if you really wanted it that bad, like you say you do, then your actions would match it.
Yeah.
I talk to myself all the time.
I love it.
Like, if you really wanted it that bad, Jessica, why are you doing this instead of this, right? And so I just like snap out and go. But it comes down to a lot of self-discipline.
Yep.
Because we live in a world full of distractions, right? Politics, the news, Netflix, social media, all that stuff, right?
So I'm gonna pretend you have a brother. I'm gonna be your brother, and I'm gonna say, but Jessica, you're working so hard. You gotta enjoy life. Jessica, Netflix is not bad. Like when you, and I'm sure you hear it because I hear it. When you get people, Jessica, you're working so hard. How do you receive that? How do you combat that? How do you not feel guilty for pursuing your dreams? Like what's the thought process there?
I do feel guilty sometimes, right? But not because like I'm doing it, but because like, man, this is my brother, my family that wants to spend time with me. Like there's the guilt, like I should give him some time. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't feel like I'm working. I'm doing what I love.
Yeah.
You know, like it's not like I'm freaking like bleeding my eyes out, like, oh my God, I'm so physically tired. But it's like, I love what I do. So I'm just naturally drawn to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I say. Like, it's not really work for me. It's kind of just like, I'm doing this for a bigger purpose. And ultimately, like, it is at the end of the day for my family, right? To help my parents, ultimately, my sisters, my sibling, like that's what it's for, ultimately, too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do feel guilty sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. The guilt's gonna be there. As a dad, I'm like, but I know what I'm doing it for. I'm doing it for him. And here's for me where I go with it, because I think a lot of times if you're too much on this side, it's not good. If you're too much on this side, it's not good. So here's the example. For me, if I spend all the time with my son and my wife, but then the income is not there to go to Disney, to put him in club soccer, which I know is super expensive to be. But I'm like, but Mijo, we're spending a lot of time together. He's not gonna care when he's 13. He's like, Dad, I want to be on club soccer, and we can't afford it. When I'm spending my entire life in the business and I pay for his club soccer, but I can't go to any of his games.
You're just writing a check.
You're just writing a check. So the ultimate life for me is not spending all the time with your family, all the time in your business. It's right in the middle to where if you could really be able to have control of your life. And here's where I think a lot of people waste time. The waste time mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, the waste time watching movies just to distract themselves versus an event with the kids. They'll spend time doing certain things. Like I'm all for movies. I've watched Cars like 15 times in the last 2 months with my son. Like he loves cars, right? Like Disney cars, right? But it's a movie with him versus just a movie kind of just to waste time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right? No, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. It has to be for like a fulfillment purpose, right? If you're doing it in good company, right, to build those relationships. Because seriously, like I didn't really think about this when I was younger, like relationships, right? But as I get older, I'm like, they're super important, right? Whether it be romantically or with just actual platonic friendships, they're super important.
Right.
You know, building relationships with your siblings, right? Because you're stuck with them forever. Like I have great relationships. Like me and my sisters, we all get along, right?
Right.
And I know there's siblings that don't get along, but I think it's really important, right? And I didn't value it as much before as I do now. Maybe because I'm getting older, but
yeah, I believe it. So let me ask you another question. People make excuses, okay? Some people say, I'm too young. Some people say, I'm too old. Some people say, because I don't have kids, when I have a kid, I'll be really motivated. Some people say, because I have kids, I'm too busy. What's your reaction to when people make excuses as far as why they cannot do what you're doing now? What's your reaction to that?
Well, one, it's just an excuse, right? And also you're scared. That's what it is. You're scared and you're not admitting it, right? Because if you were fully confident and that you know that you can make it work, you would do it, right? But it's an excuse, right, to continuously waste time while you figure out what you want to do, right? Play it out. Maybe the market's not good. Like now is not the time to start a business because of the pandemic, right? Now is the best time to start a business, right? There's never going to be a perfect time. Seriously, never. And so a lot of it is fear, right? We tell ourselves things so that we don't do the thing we're afraid to do, right? Because ultimately people are scared to fail, right? And, you know, most people don't know that failure is good, right? Like if I didn't fail those other businesses, I wouldn't have fell into meeting this mentor, right? So each failure is a stepping stone forward. And I always tell people who like DM me, like, what if this doesn't work for me, right? I'm like, the only way it won't work is if you quit. You will fail. You're gonna fail, right? But that doesn't mean you've failed, right? The only way is if you just don't do it. That makes you a failure, right?
Right. So let's say I'm 31, about to turn 32. I have my wife, I have my son, another one on the way, and I'm following you on Instagram, and I say, hey, Jessica, you know what? I wish I was your age. I wish I had no spouse, no kids, because I wish I would have found this at your age, but it's kind of too late. What would you tell me?
It's never too late. I mean, it sounds very cliche, right? Everyone says that, but it's true, right? Time is going to go by anyways. Whether you take action or you don't take action, you're still going to be getting older, right? So might as well start doing something, you know what I mean? Because I would always tell people, like, my biggest fear is being 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, looking back, wishing I would have done that thing, right, that I was thinking about. So yeah, like time goes on whether you take action or not. Might as well make the time worth it.
But Jessica, you don't know though, because you don't have kids. I have my kids. Like my life is busy. I have my full-time job. I have my kids. I have my children's responsibility. But you don't know. How could you say I'm just making an excuse, Jessica? You don't know. What would you say?
I would say, well, if you feel like, don't you want to at least set a great example for your children?
Boom.
Right? What if it works? Your children, oh my gosh. And if it doesn't work, your children, daddy worked so hard, at least he tried. right? So
So good.
setting an example for your children. That's all it is.
Let me tell you why I like that, Jessica. So a couple more questions, then we'll wrap up, but we're almost done. But
No problem.
let me tell you why I like that so much, because I think that the best thing that somebody could, the best strategy that somebody could use to teach their kids is not going to be books, it's not going to be audios, it's not going to be YouTube videos, it's going to be their personal example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think for kids to become willing to be, or to be in a position where they're going to become very successful, they have to see mom and dad going for their dreams.
For sure, absolutely.
Dreams, right?
And like I think a lot of parents like don't realize how much what they do and say impacts your kid, even when they're young, right? If you constantly say around the house, we can't afford that, your child's gonna constantly be growing up thinking that there's lack of money. There's no lack of money, first of all. There's never gonna run out of money. We live in an abundant world, right? But if you're constantly programming, like the words that you say really matter, especially when you're around your children, right? Because subconsciously you're programmed that way. For me personally, I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't grow up rich, right? I always had what I needed, but it wasn't like for the extra stuff, right? And I would always hear like, we don't have enough money, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of grew up to believe that until I met the owner of Wetzel's Pretzels, and she kind of just changed everything, like the way I'm thinking, like everything that I heard as a kid was a lie, right? Yeah. There's always enough money, right? If you don't have enough money for something, that most people say, I can't afford that, but that's the wrong question. You should like, how can I afford that? Does that make sense?
So much sense.
Yeah.
So last couple questions. When you say you had success when you got started, but I'm sure there's people who have been in the same program you've been, and they've not had the success you've had. What's the difference between your success and their lack of success yet?
Yeah, well, I've referred a bunch of people to the same program I took, right? And I have people who have made sales, and I have people who have not done anything. And when I go to these people and ask them like, hey, do you need help with anything? Like, how's it going? And I ask them like, what's up? Like, I haven't seen you active or anything. And they said, oh, I just haven't started it yet. You bought this program 3 months ago, 2 months ago. You haven't started yet? You know what I mean? So that's the difference. It's action. Nothing works unless you do. Nothing. Absolutely nothing, right? So I think that's the key difference. For me, I did this every single day, right? I was able to take action every single day. For some people, I know they're busy or whatever, at least every other day, right? But for you to say you're serious about making money and your actions don't match that and you just don't do, like there's no magic potion, you will never have it. You know what I mean? And I always, like, people tell me like, how do I make money, blah, blah, blah. Like, can you help me? I'm like, I can help you, right? I can give you all the tools. I can give you all the resources. I can give you all the support that you need, but I cannot do the work for you. And I cannot be more committed to your success than you are your own, right? So it's really up to you. So.
That's so powerful. What books would you recommend for people to read to kind of become a better version of themselves?
A better version. So the book How to Win Friends and Influence People is by far my favorite book of all time. I think human communication is so important because it aligns with every single aspect in life, right? It's a really good book. It's very powerful on communication, on how not to feel sorry for yourself, how to take accountability, all that stuff. Really good book. Another book is Think and Grow Rich, right? Yep. It kind of subconsciously reprograms your mind from cutting off the thought patterns you had before, right? Unlearning everything you learned as a kid and learn this new way, right? Of abundant thinking. So Think and Grow Rich is cool. Lastly, The Secret, right? Okay. Sure, it's a great book. There's a good documentary too on YouTube called The Secret, but it's basically about the law of attraction, which I really believe in. A lot of people think it's cheesy, but it's true, right? What you say, you attract, right? What you don't want to happen, you'll get more of it.
Yeah.
Kind of why, like, when you're scared, you're super scared of the unknown, you physically start to feel sick, right? Yeah. Because you attract that into your life. But if you constantly tell yourself, like, I live in an abundant world, there's more than enough for me. It's not just saying, right? But like having that energy and really attracting it makes all the difference for sure.
I love it. And last comments, what would you say to somebody who's listening to this? We're going to post your Instagram link. So
yeah, for sure.
What would you say to them? For somebody, let's say it's me, I was 25 working a full-time social work job, no spouse, no kids then, drowning in student loans, but I wanted more, yet I wasn't sure. What advice would you give me to be able to live the ultimate life?
Take action. Take action. Whether you fail or not, that's totally fine, right? Like, but you just have to do. So many people just want, right? And they kind of hope it falls in their lap, right? But really, any successful person will tell you, you have to take action, right? Like, nothing works unless you do, right? So I would tell you, take action, find mentors. I always say it is super important. And I think a lot of people think like a mentor has to be like someone you pay thousands of dollars who's making millions of dollars. No, a mentor could be your parent, right? If you admire them and they have great wisdom. A mentor could be a book that you read, right? Books were some of my first mentors, right? I learned so much. So yeah, take action, find mentors for sure.
I love it. Jessica, you are a rock star. I'm so curious to see the 33-year-old version of Jessica. Right now you're 23, spanking up on a bunch of people older than you, more life experience, but you've just been less scared. You're going at it. You're taking more action. So,
thank you so much.
Super impressed. But we'll post your Instagram link on the video. I appreciate it. And everybody else, have a good day and go live the ultimate life. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for jumping on.
Have a good one.